Well, thank you very much for having me here. And it's been a pleasure to listen to Liz and Keisha and their stories. And it's a hard act to follow. But um, I'm going to talk today. I am the leader of an organization, but I'm not really going to talk about that aspect of my leadership. I'm going to talk more about community, being out in the community and how to get involved. And I hope that after you see what I talk about, that it can help some of you help solve the problems that are so ingrained in our society today. And I really think that we can all, if we all work together, we can do that. So it's called Building a House by Building a Community, and I hope you'll see why. So a little bit about myself. I was born in Pewaukee. I moved to Milwaukee at the age of 9 in 1966. I lived on the east side as a young man, went to Maryland Avenue Grade School, Marquette High, UWM, and Madison. So other than living in Chicago for a few years, about 3 years, I've really lived in Milwaukee my whole life, and I'm very committed to making Milwaukee a better place, and we'll talk about that. So I've been a consulting engineer, a civil engineer, and I've been the president of my current company since 2012. And one thing you got to know about me, in addition to being very interested in the community, I like to see things get built. That's just my nature. That's the industry I'm in. I've wanted that since I was a young man. So I like to see bricks and mortar and things get built. So I have been involved, as I said, in civil engineering, and as part of, I view civil engineering, and I think you probably all view your professions as very noble professions. How we help people, so many things that people don't think about when they turn on the water or they flip the electric switch or they get in their car and they drive. These were all something that civil engineers had had, and civil engineers is really serving the community. So I always thought of myself as serving the community by virtue just of the profession I had chosen. Luckily, within that profession at my company, Grafe, there was a long history of working in the community was important. It was encouraged. That was part of the way that I was brought up into industry. It was not something that you necessarily had to do on your spare time. And it was an important thing that we live in this community, we work in this community, we get things from the community, but you had to give back. And that's been part of our culture since I started there, and we continue to have that kind of culture. But I'll tell you a story that really got me more involved. So this picture is of what became Miller Park or Ampam Field under construction in County Stadium. And what the story I'm going to tell is probably about 10 years earlier than this, believe it or not. But there was a lot of talk about building a new stadium, really back to the early 90s. And there was a lot of fight. If those of you who are old enough and remember the fight that it took to get this stadium built, and there was a lot of negativism. And at that time, I thought, I'm an engineer. I like to build things. Nobody here wants to do anything. We want to build the stadium, but nobody really is, is interested in doing anything. Maybe I should move somewhere where people are more open to building things and making progress in the city. And they're not always just thinking about the 50 or 60 reasons why you shouldn't do something, but the one reason why you should do something. So I really considered strongly moving. And I thought about that, and I thought, well, if you're somewhere that you are and you don't like the way it is, you have three choices. And one of them is to move. And I don't think that's a bad idea. I've had brothers and sisters who've left the area or friends, and you can move and go someplace else where you like it better. One of them is to stay there and complain about it. So you can do that, and that's what most people do. They stay there and they moan about it, and how come things aren't better? Why don't the politicians do a better job? And the third thing is you can stay there and try to make it better. So I think only the first and the third thing make any choice. You can leave or you can stay there and try and make it better. It's no make any sense. It makes no sense to stay there and just complain about it. But unfortunately, that's what a lot of people do. So I decided at that time, rather than leave, I was going to stay here and try and make things better. So I really tried to commit myself to that. But I had a couple issues in that I thought, because I was thinking more of this kind of transformational change that I had to be a part of. And part of the problem was I'm not rich. I can't give somebody $90 million to build a Bradley Center. I'm not well known. Why would anybody listen to me? I'm not politically astute, so I'm not sure how I'm going to do. And plus, with my engineering background, people tended to think, and there may be some truth to that, I didn't necessarily possess the people skills, or I looked at things in a way that wasn't necessarily good for, these really big thinking. So, I had that. I'm wondering, well, how am I going to get beyond these problems? And one good thing about that was my engineering discipline taught me when I learned that if you have some huge problem, the way you solve it is you take that huge problem, you break it into a bunch of smaller problems, and you solve those smaller problems, and you put it back together, and you can solve the huge problem. So I said, well, I'm not going to be any of those things overnight, so I can't do that. But then what I started to do is I decided, I realized that there's this kind of house model, and people always think that change is transformational. That's what they remember. AmFam Field was built. That's a big transformation. Leaders do things that are very have a huge effect. Mahatma Gandhi or Martin Luther King or somebody like that. But really, I think most change, even though we love the transformational change, I think most change is incremental. So I realized that, I view a community as a house that we're building, and a house is never finished, and you're always building a house. And there are some people that build a lot of the house. I mentioned like Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi. They build a whole wing of the house, but most of us aren't able to do that, but we're able to do something. So when you're building a house, you have a roofer, you have a carpenter, you have the painter, you have someone installing the windows. So maybe all I can do is put up one wall of this house, or maybe I can just shingle one side of the house. But if I do that and everybody else does that, then the change happens over time. So I think a lot of people don't get involved in trying to make the community better because they don't know, they view that I have to make a transformational change. And really you can do this, everybody can do this incremental change. Everybody in this room can help with the incremental change. And I think, and I've seen, I'm a little bit older than Liz and Keisha, and I have seen over time the benefits of some of this incremental change. So over time, I've become involved with a large number of groups. You see them, some of them there. In most of these groups, I've served either as a chair or a member of the executive committee at some point or another, and been involved. And I wasn't, I am a CEO, so that helps me, but most of the people on the board are not. And I don't think anybody would say, if you ask somebody, well, who's making change in this community, that my name would particularly come up. But I do believe, and I'm proud of this, that within each of those groups that are listed there, I've been involved in things that have actually had a positive effect on this community. I didn't do it by myself. I did it with other board members, and together we did things in every single one of those that had a positive impact on this community. So that's really what I'm here to talk about today. We can all have a positive impact if we just think of ourselves. I'm the bricklayer. I'm just out there laying bricks every day. And, we'll see. I think I have a lot of runway left. We'll see when I get to the end how much of the house that I built. But I know that that pushes the needle forward. And everybody would do this if they would say, well, I'm not going to complain about it. I'm going to do something about this. And they would try to do it in this small incremental manner, whether it's volunteering on a neighborhood organization, a board like this, or there's a million different ways to do it. I think that that's a very, very important way to think about things. So at the end of the day, AmFam Millard Park did get built. I had nothing to do with it, but I was glad to see it happen. But I continue to try to build physical things in my day job, but all of the time I'm trying to build a better community. And I think if you just take that simple thing of, I don't have to tackle this whole big problem by myself. I don't have to be transformational. If you are a transformational leader, by all means, go for it. If you say, I can't wait that long, John, that's great. But most of us are not. And for those of us who are not, you can still have a very positive impact if you're just willing to to get started, to get out there, and to be part of a group that's trying to make this community better. So that's, I want to thank you. And I'm really very pleased to be here today, and I'm looking forward to our roundtable discussion. So thank you very much.